Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Tate Dezay, host and founder of Brother Breathe. Now, listen, some of you all know that I'm currently in my PhD coursework, and I am taking a class this semester called Leadership Theory and Practice. One of the assignments require us to interview a leader within higher education that we admire. Well, y'all know your brother is an overachiever. So I ended up interviewing four leaders that I admire within higher education. And now I've created a leadership series for Brother Breathe. Now, some of you all may have listened to my first podcast this month questioning what is leadership really? Hmm. Well, buckle your seatbelts because now you get to hear from esteemed leaders from across the country that are going to share their leadership philosophies, their expertise, their journey to wellness, and the power of community. So I need you all to like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to follow these leaders. They are quite inspiring and they have a lot to offer everybody. Okay. So be sure to like and subscribe and share. I want you all to get as much as you can out of this series. And I'm so excited to be able to share these leaders who I admire and who are doing great work within higher education spaces. So again, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure your friends know about it. Don't forget to leave me a comment because I do read them. And I also want you all to leave a review because that is also helpful for the future work that we'll do together. All right. Remember, you're not alone, and we are going to breathe through this. All right. All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Tate Dezay, founder and host of Brother Breathe, and I am super excited to start off this conversation with my special guest. But I would love to start off the conversation with these words from the Reverend Dr. James Cone. He says that the Christian community must become what it professes to be, the visible manifestation that we are one people of God, all bound together in a common humanity. And I
Mm,
just think that that
mm,
is a great starter to a conversation with a man who wrote a book recently about humanity,
mm,
right? Becoming Human, the Holy Spirit and the Rhetoric of Race. Dr. Reverend Dr. Luke A. Powery is the Dean of the Duke University Chapel and Professor of Homiletics and African American Studies. He holds many faculty appointments in Duke's Divinity School and the Department of African American Studies in the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with this giant and one of the greatest minds of our generation, I am going to put the information in our episode notes so that you can read and review and maybe even connect with Reverend Prowry in the future. But as for now, we want to hop into this conversation because I'm excited to get it started. But just to start, how is your heart and spirit, Brother Prowry? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Mm, good,
This is gonna
good.
be a highlight of my day, I can tell.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that. I am happy to hear that. And I would say that this is definitely a highlight. I just got back from the Congressional Black Caucus in
Mm,
DC. And so just being around such great leaders and then to be having a conversation with you who has been historic in many ways and
mm,
leading the charge for others is quite remarkable. So I'm excited to be in your presence. But to kind of give people a little bit of insight of who you are, let's kind of take it back to childhood and tell me about the first time you realized you were stepping into leadership. This could be back in childhood or high school, or even early college years. What was that moment
mm,
like for you?
hmm. I don't know if I realized, it well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me
Absolutely.
on this. But I don't know if I realized it, but I would that question has me hearkening going back to my childhood. You know, as a child, I wouldn't have thought of it, but multiple times during a church service, in the middle of the service, being called up to lead a
Mm.
song spontaneously.
Oh wow.
So a part of the liturgical experience and just being ready to go with the
Mm.
song, whether it's at an altar call, whether it's during a sermon. And I wouldn't have pondered that obviously as a child. I was just like, oh boy, here they go again, calling me up and resisting. But if I look back over my life now and think things over,
Mhm, mhm.
the seeds were already being sown in my life, even as a child, and maybe a middle schooler into definitely into high school, where I took over. I took over the choir and all of that. And so the leadership really, I would say, people saw things in me I didn't see in myself, which
Mm,
is often so true for others. And it was really through the mechanism or the vehicle of music in the context of the church where I think those gifts were being called out, to me, leading the community in
wow, yeah.
song, a choir, and all of this was wrapped up in spirituality, prayer, and God and faith, and but really it was through song, through music, that these gifts, I would say, leadership gifts, were stirred up.
That's amazing. So not only you're a profound, preacher, but you are a musician. So you can sing and play or just sing?
My background, yeah, I used to play. I wouldn't call myself. I have a bachelor's in music
Oh,
from
wow.
Stanford
Okay.
University, yeah, and the concentration was on voice, vocal performance. So, we had the formal classical training, in undergrad, and we had to have piano proficiency. So, but voice is my main thing. I'm singing in weddings, singing in I used to do a lot of that
That's
back in the
amazing.
day. Of course, in church, all of that.
Great.
I grew up, but it was the roots of that are really in my family because we were a very musical family. That was before any kind of formal training, from undergraduate days.
Mm,
And the roots were there. And so music was so key as a kind of just a part of life. It wasn't
yeah.
about performance. It was about a kind of delight and joy and playfulness and obviously worship as well. But yeah, I mean, and music, I would say, was the portal to my future.
Wow. Wow.
It really, if I look back over it, even though I got
Mhm,
many questions when I became a music major, even though I went to Stanford to
mhm.
do computer science, that was on my mind, and
Yeah.
then God had other plans, and so music was the portal to my future. I can say that now. I think at the time people were asking me, "What are you going to do with a music degree?"
Mhm.
I didn't know. People were thinking about the money, the bling bling, and all of that, capitalism, the pressures that brings. I just knew that I trusted God. Once I made declared that I was like, I have no idea where this is going to go. And music led me to the theological studies and interest in the arts more broadly, and then serving a church in Switzerland, and then going back to graduate school, focusing more on preaching and doing some work in liturgics and teaching in theological education, as I have been almost 20 years now. But music, God used that to open the door to what I'm doing today, and music has accompanied me on my
Mhm.
life's journey.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
never it always plays out. It could play out in the pulpit, it could play out in the classroom, it could play out even now. It could,
Mhm.
because it's so much a part of my life and my journey. And if I didn't sing at times, I wouldn't be myself. I wouldn't be true to my own sense of vocation and my own voice. And
Mhm.
so being in the academy and kind of the intersection of church and academy, but being at these Research One institutions, to embrace the totality of my voice, literal and metaphorical, has
Right.
been a journey, but it has been the key. It has been the freedom. It has been where the joy is found.
Wow.
Anyway, I'll stop there, but I can talk all day about
That's
that.
amazing. No,
Yeah.
I'm a music kid, so I love
Oh,
it. And, what tradition were you raised in?
I grew up in the Holiness Pentecostal
Okay.
church. I'm ordained with the Progressive National Baptist, so I'm a Baptist-costal, and
Okay.
I've served in a lot of, like even here at Duke, it's interdenominational. The
Mhm.
church in Switzerland was in the Reformed tradition, and so in many ways, I'm ecumenical. My calling is ecumenical,
Okay.
so I move in and out of different circles, but I come out of spirit traditions. That's how I like to
Mhm.
think of it.
I love
Uh,
that. I
yeah.
too grew up in the Holiness Church, and
Oh,
I am a graduate of Candler School of Theology. So I'm
oh,
sure you are aware of the loss of a giant of Dr. Abbington, who
oh,
passed away. But I was reflecting on my flight back to to Atlanta from DC, and I remember I would sit in his office late at night because he would be on campus late at night. We would just be chatting, and once he found out that I grew up Kojic, he
yeah.
had a myriad of stories to share with me. He's like, sit down. I want to tell you about, your international music president. I want to tell you
That's
about,
yes.
and the joy that he had about just church history and church music history
Oh,
specifically was amazing. And I told him that I took piano lessons as a kid,
yeah.
and I did not see it through. And he
Mhm.
just had a fit. He was like, "You would have been a great organist. What were you thinking?" And so,
Oh, yes.
but blessed to his memory, because
Oh,
he was quite a joy.
oh,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Abington was my dear friend. Now,
Wow.
he was coming to Duke. He was hired at Duke. July 1, he was hired
Of
at Duke
2025?
Divinity yes, Duke
Wow.
Divinity School, the Bethea Chair in Black Church Studies. He was the
Wow.
first that person that held that chair. And so
Wow.
Dr. Abington and I had been colleagues and friends over the years. We tag teamed in doing something on the spirituals and hymns. Even when I taught at Princeton
Mhm.
Seminary, came down here to Charlotte to do something with him, and we've just stayed in touch. And he was so looking forward to being here at Duke and with the Blue
Yeah.
Devils, and we just laughed. All the stories,
Yeah.
all the laughter, all the humor,
Yeah.
all the joy
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
will be so missed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so missed. And I think in many ways here at Duke, because people were so looking forward to him coming,
Mm.
and is what a loss.
Yes.
What a loss for Duke, what a loss for the church, what a loss for the nation and the world, the church music world.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Jimmie was the guru of Black sacred music.
Absolutely.
I don't know how else to say it.
His impact will definitely be felt for generations to come, for sure.
Without a doubt.
What a giant.
Mm.
And some of my peers were, sharing stories via text messages. So he has impacted the next generation, and it is quite a joy to even share in community with you about just his
Oh,
memory, because that's how, large his impact was. So
most definitely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what
So
I loved about him, just one last thing is,
mhm.
he is someone who crossed all these genres. Like,
Mm,
he knew the classical, conductors, esteemed classical conductors, all the way to the contemporary gospel artists.
right.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's James Abbington.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I think that, we hear God's got the whole world in his hands. Well,
Mm,
Jimmie, in terms of the music of the world, the gifts, it's in many ways was facilitating that
mm,
relationship,
mhm, mhm.
in his hands, in his musical hands across the genres and styles and people and denominations. And oh
Yeah,
man, what a gift. What a gift.
absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I love starting at the beginning stages to kind of ground the conversation in where leadership begins for you.
Mm,
And not just with the positions and the titles, but with people and moments,
that's it.
and like the moments is in those church services that really started to mold and shape who you are today. And so with that in
Mhm.
mind, would you kind of give us a little bit of your philosophy and perspective around how you define leadership today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great. I love how you begin with what I think of as the human,
Mm,
right? Like, and I happen to, at least today, thought about my childhood in the church. Um, for me, I think the idea of leadership really has to do, I think, more and more for me, to be honest. I don't know if I came into this role or even thinking about it in other roles. Really has to do with being more fully human
Mhm.
and ushering. I call my joke with people, I call myself the head usher.
Hmm.
And it's that image of ushering. I mean, obviously I'm in a theological institution, faith community, and so this idea of ushering people to encounter God, right, into God's presence, or you're ushering people into a certain kind of experience. You're ushering them to leading them to their seat, a place of comfort, their place in the community. And so this idea of being a head usher has been helpful, but it's to the human experience. This is where to get to the human. Like for me, I think what I'm learning, because it's always learning, not that I've learned that um to we lead human beings. And so it's what's critical is to be able to connect with those we lead,
Mm.
right, as human
Yes.
beings. So not
Yes.
their title. I like that. Not the title. Like I told you earlier, right? Luke is more than Duke.
Mhm.
Or Duke isn't Luke, however you want to say it. And it's the idea that, at the end of the day, um, we are dust. We've come from dust, and the dust we will return. And so to keep that ethics of dust, what I think of as at the forefront of my mind, not that I'm thinking about dying every day, but what I'm saying is to embrace the humanity, to affirm the
Mm.
humanity of those I lead, to remember I'm human, to remember our collective and shared humanity,
Right.
to remember those who, regardless of their titles. I mean, I report to the president of Duke. I'm engaging with the president of Duke, but I'm also engaging with the housekeepers. So how do
Mhm.
all human? Doesn't matter. So what titles you have. So how do I embody that in words and deeds, right?
Mm.
And so to me, a leader, first of all, is a human being.
Mhm.
And that means with the the challenges and the opportunities, right? It's
Mhm.
easier to deal with machines than human beings. So,
That's right. Yeah.
and I think so how do we get into the life of those that we want to usher to a different place? How do we connect?
Mhm.
However, you can say it in different ways. How do we inspire? How do we motivate?
Right.
But and we're not motivating machines, we're motivating human beings. And
Right.
so that level of discernment, of empathy, of even love, of inspiration and joy, and all of these things sort of go into, I think, my understanding of what it means,
Mhm.
to lead. But
Mhm.
obviously, when you're ushering people, you're usher. I mean, ultimately, if I take that metaphor and I think in the context of a church ushering into the sanctuary, into a holy place, into that. So there's a telos, there's an end, there's a goal, there's an ultimate goal. And I think that's true in organizations. So where am I ushering the people to? Like ultimately, what is that goal? What do I want them to encounter or experience or dream of or get behind, whatever it is? I think that those things, it's critical.
Mhm.
Um, but you can't think about, you know, I think there's also a level of, um, trust, and that takes time where people have to, trust you, even as a human being,
That's
even as a leader, as one who might mess up, not perfect, you know, don't do everything,
Mhm.
well. So you have to know your limits. But again, it's the connection that over time, then people trust you, then they'll follow, you
Mhm.
again. So anyway, those are some things, just some musings, not a systematic structure for you, but
No, no, no. I love that because the same can be applied in the classroom, right? So looking at like the professor who is orchestrating an experience for students and when you are able to share that you too are human, because there's often this hierarchical intimidation, right? Where
Oh,
you're
yeah.
afraid to, to address the professor or go to office hours because, I know me as an undergrad, like the professors seemed like they were the god of their, of their
Mhm.
classroom or their
Mhm.
subject. And so, but when a professor approaches teaching in a way that, allows them to expose themselves as human, right? And that we have shared lived experiences, right?
Right.
Where they not so hung up on the title or calling me doctor. You have to call me doctor all the time. It creates a more of an experience where it's like, oh, this is someone that really cares about our experience, our educational experience, our learning experience, and that I can go to and not be intimidated by. Even
Mhm.
in this context today, I must admit, I was extremely nervous. Like to interview you. And so it's like just
Mhm.
knowing like, your accolades and accomplishments.
Mhm.
And the moment we get on conversation, you're like, oh yeah, I grew up in the Holiness Church, and I'm Luke, right? And so for
Right.
me, I'm seeing a thread of connection. I grew up in the Holiness Church, and so you're
Mhm.
allowed, right? You can still be that leader, but leading in a way that draws people, right? And so this ushering that you're mentioning, I
Mhm.
think that can also be applied within the classroom. And so I appreciate that. I really do.
Oh, most definitely. I
Yeah.
think the classroom, I would say, is where I'm the most fully myself,
Mm,
which is interesting. I've been thinking about that, and what that is. And, obviously, that's a less public space than do
right.
chapel, YouTube, radio, and all of that, and, but it's a more intimate, and environment, and but I think how do you create that space where students not only learn in the context of theological education, my hope is that they as they grow in their knowledge and love of God, that they grow well as they grow in their knowledge and love of whatever the topic is, they grow in
Mhm,
their knowledge and love of God. And in that process, there's a sense of, well, Evans Crawford in the Hum, his book The Hum, talking about preaching as a rendezvous of love. Well, in some sense, the classroom space could be a rendezvous of love and
mm,
laughter and engagement. And I think, and in the classes I teach, most of them, I mean, around preaching and the spirituals, and I mean Howard Thurman, the class and all of that. That I'm trying to get. I might even get students to sing, and they're even if
wow.
they don't know a spiritual. First day of class this semester, intro to Christian. It was improvised, intro to Christian preaching. But I was, I'm going to sing when the Spirit says sing, because I always have a centering moment. But then what I ended up doing, had them stand, move, but I went around and I had my lapel mic, and I ended up getting some of them to sing
I love
in the
that.
moment,
Yeah. Mhm,
because what it's creating a human experience
mhm,
of
mhm.
song around music again. But it's what it does is it starts to let people relax. It common ground,
Mhm.
right? Theologically, I see it as an invocation for the spirit,
Yes.
but sociologically, it's like we're in this together. That's what the spirituals do anyway.
Mhm.
our song.
Our song,
It's the
exactly.
community that becomes
Right.
important, and I think that's it's a way it sets a tone,
Mhm,
trying to set a
mhm.
tone, you know, to, okay, yeah, I'm the professor, even my preceptors, I have 4. I don't even call them even on the precept. Every now and then I'll say preceptors, but on the syllabus, I have my co-instructors,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah,
again, it's about the communal. I
absolutely.
can learn from them as well,
That shared
you
leadership model,
share.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, right. And I'm interested in knowing if there's a specific time where you felt like your leadership had a powerful positive impact. Like if there was an incident or an
Mm.
event that took place, what happened?
Yeah, positive. Yeah, it's funny because um, I my hope. I don't know if there's one particular thing that stands out. I mean,
Okay.
we do um a lot of programming through the chapel. I mean, a lot. Um, Big concerts, worship services,
Mhm.
student engagement, community engagement.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I'm in front of people a lot to do
Mhm.
prayers, for at commencement or a sermon at baccalaureate. And, I could name anecdotally different things that people have said to me from parents or, something about the prayer at the commencement, parents, right? Like it
Mhm.
touched them. It's a positive leadership. I'm in that kind of leadership role, which is public,
Right.
often over related to ceremonies. That's a given. But if I look at what the chapel team has done through these various programming panels, uh, art exhibitions, around issues around, formerly incarcerated or,
Mm.
those kinds of issues. We've done arts, I mean, over the years where you use art to have these meaningful conversations, right, about
Mm.
justice. And I would say that way, or faith at the university years ago, pulling together deans or having meaningful conversations now on pluralism. Or we had Brian Stevenson here for a few lecture.
Oh,
We were in
awesome.
conversation. We started a new series. He was the first about justice and, and so I think, in those ways, it's like leading a conversation, curating meaningful conversations. Um, and the thing I'll mention, there's an initiative out of the provost office called Pluralism, Free Inquiry, and Belonging. And the
Mm.
chapel now has started. We did the first one last, the pluralism lectures. So it's engaging
Love
these
that.
meaningful conversations from our lens,
Mhm.
kind of the religious side, and to be not only convene those, but really to be in the thick, a lot of it behind the scenes, particularly whether around the Middle East, and now around civil discourse and free. We're in the game. We're in those conversations,
Mhm.
trying to influence, trying to cultivate, trying to help. Have constructive dialogue. All of that. So it's not all public things. There are things behind the scenes that people will never know, that people will never see.
Mhm.
That I would say, has been a positive influence of leadership. You know,
That's awesome. And so on the flip side, when have you experienced leadership that didn't go as planned, or
Mm.
when was it? Can you describe a moment where it was hard to lead, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah,
Mhm.
man. Well, there's one that stands out. Um, and not to go into all the rabbit holes on this, but
Mhm.
2015 in January, there was miscommunication across the campus, or it didn't get to all the units that needed to, about an idea that was related to the call to prayer, Muslim call to prayer. Because in my role, we have the chapel and we oversee administratively what we call religious life at Duke, which is
Mhm.
multi faith. There's 24 religious life groups, multi faith. A lot of them are Christian, but Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist.
Mhm.
And in this year, anyway, there was an idea of a call to prayer that Muslim call that would be connected to the chapel. Anyway, short story is it didn't the idea. I was maybe 2 years, 2.5 years in. The idea didn't get the communication didn't go flow how it needed to in terms of socializing.
Mm.
And what ended up happening, it blew up because um well, Franklin Graham jumped into it
Mhm.
and it blew up. At that point, donors, because of
Mhm.
the misunderstanding,
Mhm.
donors, we're going to say, were pulling out money and all kinds of things. There were death threats against staff members.
Wow.
There was tensions. And
Wow.
you're talking about a difficult time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even explain it. news
Mhm.
on NPR, me and the then imam taking news reporters
Mhm.
out in front of the chapel. It was a time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But, we made it through that, and it was a challenging time for a lot of reasons, a lot of dynamics.
Mhm.
But coming through that, it's like anything that happens seems easier.
Mhm. Yeah,
To be honest,
yeah.
because
Mm.
the coordination of communication, the staff, there was lots of, like, fear, there were extra security around, like, it was a challenging
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
But we
yeah.
made it through, and it's like,
Mhm.
wow, I grew and learned a lot through that,
Mm.
um, because I'm not sure the socialization, you can have ideas, but you gotta socialize it with the right people and make sure it's the right timing and it's the right thing, and I
Mhm.
don't that didn't necessarily happen. I think that's, in the end, the gist of it, because it
Mhm.
had these ripple effects that was just, and we didn't foresee that, and it was unfortunate, but in a lot of ways, a lot of growth and learning came from that experience, and it strengthens you. It gives you skin as tough as a rhinoceros.
Mhm. Mhm. What spiritual disciplines or practices help you sustain your leadership, like, during challenging times like that?
Oh man. Well, fundamentally, I mean, prayer,
Prayer, yeah.
and that might be just sitting in silence.
Mm.
Um, prayer, scripture reading. It's the fundamentals. Also, I mean, again, I come back to song or listening
Mhm. Yeah.
to certain songs that it might not even be me singing them, but
Mm.
listening to certain songs. Those are probably the top three: scripture reading, yeah, prayer, listening to music, or singing as a
What would be
dynamic.
your go-to songs? Is it hymnal based, or is it, uh,
You
give us a
know,
few examples?
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, one is a gospel song that Ricky Dillard, his version of arrangement of "God Is."
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God Is. Yeah,
Your
that
James
took me
Cleveland.
through a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Also, it's funny, another one during the pandemic, this is which was a challenging. I turned to Larnell Harris, if you're familiar with that name, has a song called "But God."
Mm.
And I believe that's the actual name of the song. But anyway, I went back to my roots during
Yeah.
that time, and another one now is a spiritual. There is a balm in Gilead,
Oh, yes. Yes.
has been on my mind like,
Mhm.
it's like the iPod of my life on repeat.
Mhm.
There is a
Wow.
balm in Gilead,
Yeah.
and that is just for whatever reason. So those are some, but yeah, I mean, hymns, spirituals, most definitely, you know. Grant us, we sang God of grace and God of glory this past Sunday morning, but I pray those last few lines. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage
Mhm.
for the, facing of this hour or facing of these days, like that.
Yeah.
Grant us wisdom and grant us courage. That becomes so critical.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So what gives you hope for the future of religious life and spiritual leadership on college campuses? I know that
Mm,
in my previous conversations, some folks have shared that chaplaincy is moving towards more spiritual leaders, right? And you talked about pluralism earlier in the conversation, and there's needing a little bit more of interfaith dialogue on campus and having that lens in order to lead students inclusively, right?
yeah.
And so what gives you hope for the future of religious life?
Huh. I'll answer it this way. I think here the motto is eruditio et religio, knowledge and religion. So religio,
Mm.
And what gives me hope is that religio, it means to bind. So on one level, it is what we would normally think religion, okay, binding humanity to the divine. But it also is there's a sociological piece to this. It's also binding us to one another.
Mm.
So in these divisive times that we are in, and I think, there's always been conflicts global. That's nothing new. That what gives me hope is that there is a need for religio. There's a need for religious expression
Yeah, yeah.
because we need the binding
Mm,
of humanity.
mm,
And what can help with that? Religious people.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
People of
yeah.
faith can help with that,
Mhm,
regardless of your, actual religious traditions.
mhm,
If you want to live in the world, you need to understand religio, and because it is about binding, and that's about community formation.
mm.
And so
Ooh,
um,
that's good.
that gives me
That's
hope.
good.
That gives
Yeah.
me hope. And I think the
Mhm,
other thing I would say is just students.
mm.
The joy to have students back around walking on campus after a difficult, challenging time here of a strategic realignment and cost reduction process at the
Mm,
university. To have their energy, and
mm,
their hope, their drive is such a gift, and gives me hope, um, for what's possible. But I think a lot of the global international conflicts, um, that we have, if we tap into, um, the gift of faith, we know, like, people can say, yes, there's been religious conflicts, people have killed each other, but
right.
there's been a lot of good that has
Exactly.
come from
Exactly.
religious folks,
Mhm,
hospitals, schools. You can go
mhm,
down the line,
mhm.
right? People are looking for and desiring and find meaning and purpose. And so I don't think that's going away. So that gives
Good.
me hope.
I wanna ask one last question. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self as you begin your leadership journey, what would it be?
Do you?
Mm, alright.
Do you? I wish I would have heard that early on. I heard it as a fellow, doctoral fellow
Mhm,
in
mhm.
speech communication and ministry when I landed back at Princeton Seminary before I and it was my good friend Gregory Ellison, who's a professor
Yes,
in pastoral
yes.
care
Yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
Candler.
Mhm.
Greg was finishing his PhD, and he says, "Do you?"
Do you?
And
Mhm.
most definitely, because, like as Thurman says, follow the grain in your wood,
Mm,
and that takes courage to be who God has called you to be.
that's right.
So, do you?
Do you? Well, I'm so grateful for you sharing your wisdom and your expressions and reflections on today. The binding, the music thread, the understanding of leadership in a spiritual context is really motivating to me. And so I am excited to share this information with our followers. And I'll be sure to put all of your information so folks can follow you and folks can follow what is going on, all the great things that are happening at Duke. But I'm so grateful for your time and I wish you well for the rest of the semester and onward.
Thank you so
Thank
much. I
you.
appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. If you are seeing this video, that means that you made it to the end of the interview. And I am so happy that you made it. Now, listen, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video, this podcast to a friend, to a colleague, a family member that you think might benefit from this conversation. Also, email me. I would love to know what other types of series and conversations you would like to see happen on Brother Breathe platform. Don't forget to email me at mrbigheadproduction@gmail.com. All right. Please, again, leave a review. I read them all. I want to engage with you all. I love your feedback and leave a comment, right? We want to hear what resonated with you in this conversation and what are you taking with you to your job or to your home or to your church or wherever you find yourself as a leader. All right. Remember, we are here together and we are breathing through this together as a community. All right. Peace out. Love y'all.